Here we are. Okay, and it is Joshua over on chapter 20. Last time we talked at length about the purpose of the Are Miklat. This is a refuge and who gets to go there and why they get to go there and so on and so forth. Again, I refer you to last week, or whenever we did this last. We're in chapter 20, verse 4. It says this person who committed an accidental murder, Finas elachat meharim ha'ela, he should run to one, or flee, not run, but he should flee to one of the cities, Va'amad petach sha'ar ha'ir, and he should stand at the entrance of the gate of the city, V'dibir ba'azne ziknei irahi, and he should speak the words he should speak his words into the ears of the elders of that city. Va'asfu oto ha'ira, and they should gather him in. Va'asfu oto ha'ira eleihem, he should gather they will gather him to the city to them. They'll bring him in. V'natnu lo makom, and they will give him a place. V'yashav imam, and he will live with them. Any questions? Any questions on that? Again, he's going to. He's fleeing to one of the cities. He's standing by the entrance of the entrance of the gate of the city. He speaks his words into the ears of the men of that city, the elders of that city. Then they gather him into the city and give him a place to live, and he dwells with them.
So apparently, he's approaching the gates of the city, and presumably then the elders are sitting near the gates. Is where they gather, apparently.
That is correct. We say in the Torah that the elders of the city, the court, is by the gate of the city. Okay. That is traditionally the gate, the place where the gate would be, where the court would be.
So here comes the strangers. They don't know who he is.
Correct.
So I presume as somebody's entering the city, they want to know who he is. And then he has to explain why he's there.
Right. So what does he explain? He explains, according to Masuda's David, he explains the case. He says, Eich shagag bahar tzicha. He explains how he was a shogeg in this murder. Nobody's going to come to the Are Miklat to say, I want to vacation here. Nobody's doing that. If you're coming to the Are Miklat, you're coming because you're a murderer. The question is, are you the shogeg murderer, or are you a real murderer, or are you an onesh murderer? Again, all the things that we discussed the last time. So he explains how he was a shogeg in this case, and how he deserves to be allowed into the city. He has to convince them, basically.
So if he doesn't convince them, they'll turn him away.
What they'll have to do is,
or they arrest him and put him.
They arrest him. They put him in. They take him into custody, because what's going to happen is he is going to have to go to the court. They're going to have to actually have a court case about this. If the court finds him, quote unquote, guilty of this accidental murder, and not guilty of the shogeg murder, and not guilty of a mazed murderer, so then that's when he gets to stay there. Yes. Otherwise, he doesn't get to stay there. Then it's not a free zone for him. And then it says, "V'asfulo ito," they bring him into him. Im shalo yadu she'emet ito, because they don't know if what he's saying is true. That's what my point is. They didn't know. He says, "I killed accidentally." He's not stupid. He runs to the place. He's running. He has there's obviously no testimony to what he's. There's no witnesses to what he.
Is he? Do we know if he's running because the Golden Dawn is pursuing him already, or he's afraid that he's going to be pursued? And he's
both. We don't know where the Gol Hadam is. We're not concerned with the Gol Hadam. We're concerned. Actually, this guy is concerned that the Gol Hadam may be after him, and he wants to get. He knows he doesn't deserve to die. At least that's what he's believing. He's not deserving to die. So what he does is he runs to the city of Refuge. Now, even if he was a murderer, he's going to try. Wouldn't you try? You know, if a person murders on purpose, and there are no witnesses, it's all by your testimony. So I have to know what to do. So if the witnesses to what we're talking about, there's nothing to talk about. The witnesses saw what happened, and they're going to testify this was a shogeg. He couldn't have known. He didn't know the guy, and so on and so forth. The Goel Adam can't do anything. No. They'll already stop him. But if there are no witnesses, so then he has to run.
What is the Goel Adam?
The Redeemer of blood. That's what we talked about the last time, where he is the relative of the deceased, and the Torah says he has the right to pursue the killer of his relative, and if the killer leaves, only if he did it by accident. Again, I refer you to last class. It's only if he did it by accident, without having any knowledge of who this person is. He can't have any hatred towards the person. He didn't know him, or he was a friend, whatever the case was. But the person dies accidentally. So the Goel Adam was given the right by Torah to kill him if he leaves the city of refuge or he doesn't go to the city of refuge. He's a wanted man at that point. You did something wrong. You did the crime. Now you have to do the time.
In other words, there was negligence somewhere.
There was negligence, right? Definitely negligence. It can't just be that something.
That's what our long
discussion
last
right.
was.
Yeah. Again, I refer you to that. It's I think a 50-minute discussion we're having on that. So I don't want to repeat that whole thing because otherwise we'll never get through. But it's just remember that's what we're doing. So the bottom line is, and why? By the way, if you think about it, look at the progression of the pasuk. This is how the Mesilas David got to it. He flees to one of these cities. Number one, he fled. Then he stands at the entrance. He has to tell them what he did. They don't know if it's right or wrong. So that's why it says, Ve'asfu oto ha'ira alehem. They bring him into the city. They don't know if he's right or wrong. Then what happens? Then, assuming once we know what's going on, v'natnu lo makom, once they know he has to stay there, they give him a place. And the Radak says, the rabbis explain, he's not renting the place. They're giving him the place. They're not renting, they're giving him. And he has to stay there. And he lives with them. Yeah.
Are they going to bring in witnesses to confirm his story at some point?
If he would have witnesses, then he would have to bring the witness. But again, you'd have to know.
I mean, how would they substantiate?
If there's no witnesses, well, that's the whole thing. If there's no witnesses, so then you're taking his word about it.
Because you can't convict him of malicious murder unless you had the two eyewitnesses, huh?
Two eyewitnesses telling him if he did this sort of thing, then he would be guilty to death, and he says, yes, I agree. But the problem is, like I said, you don't have that. There's maybe it could be one witness, maybe no witnesses. He's coming on his own. People turn themselves in.
Which is probably a good sign.
Right, but it could be the good, it could be bad, but it's we really have to know the Beitan has to listen. When you're listening, think about this. When your young girls came home, you and your wife were the judge during hangman, and what happens is they told you what had happened. You don't have any other way to verify their story. So now you have to listen to what they say, and based upon what they say, make a judgment. Yes or no? We all make judgments based upon that. And if there were witnesses, then we would call the witness. But there are no witnesses. And so you have to figure out what's going on. So from their very words, you can ask questions. I do it with my kids. We haven't done it for a long time, but it's they used to come to me. A did this. I did not. Okay, so now I pull them up and say, you're on trial. You're on trial. I'm the judge. You're on trial. State your case. Boom, they state the case. And I say to the other one, is that true? You listened to the claim against you. Is it true? No. Explain your case. We go back and forth until finally the truth comes out. Really, they're both guilty. I said it many times that there's no such thing as I'm innocent and you're guilty. There's nothing like that. There's always somebody did something to the other person. So here we have to try to figure out who is right and who's wrong. So the guy's coming to us and telling us, the court, I did such and such. Well, explain the whole case to us from the very beginning. And then if it fits right, fine. We still have to bring him to trial. He has to stand trial. But right now he's just trying to go, can I get into the free zone? So let him in. Okay. Hey. V'chi yirdov. Go al adam acharav. So now, if, by the way, v'chi is an interesting word. V'chi can mean because, right? It can mean if, depends on what's going on in the verse. So here, if I read it like that, I can read it, V'chi yirdov goel adam acharav, and because the goel adam will chase after him. Is that how you will read it? It doesn't make sense. So you have to, it could be because, but it could also be if. So you have to figure out what's going on in that sentence. V'lo yazgiru et rotzeach biado, and they do not give the killer into his hand. In other words, they don't give him over. They don't deliver him. Ki bevli dat hika et re'ehu, because without knowledge he killed his friend. It's interesting that the Torah is calling the person that he killed his friend. Not anybody. It's not even killed a man. He killed his friend. Below sonelo, lo mitmol shosom, and he did not hate him either yesterday or the day before. So the Metzudas David says, "Go al hadam," who's again what's going on here? Karov hanirtzach harotze linkom nikmato. So he is a relative of the one who is killed, and he wants to get revenge. He wants revenge. Again, this can only be in a very limited case. This Goel Adam is only an extremely limited case of what the Torah allows somebody to get quote unquote revenge for. Yeah.
It's strictly, again, it's not the case where you're driving down the street and somebody just runs from between two parked cars and you run them over. No. It's where you were distracted by your own negligence.
Correct. That's why, like I said, the case of when somebody jumps in front of your car that you can't anticipate, it's an impossibility to anticipate, and you're doing everything right, that's ones.
But if you were driving down the street and your phone beeps and somebody sends you a text, and you, I gotta. Negligence.
That is pure negligence. Yeah. That's close to murder. The best example I can think of for an ones is when I was at University of Massachusetts. They still have. It's called Southwest. The campus is very large, and so they had 4 or 5 living sections. I forget how many there were. But Southwest was the towers. That's where the towers were. There was a city type. If you liked city living, you'd go to the Southwest. Okay. I never liked city, so I wasn't there. That's why I'm living in South Bank, because I don't like cities. Okay. The big cities. But it's there. Somebody was at the tower was 20 stories high. It was a tall. There were big towers. And first week of classes, somebody decided to take a dive out of the 20th floor, or the 19th or 20th floor. They fall down on somebody's car, destroy the car.
Person jumped.
Committed suicide. Committed suicide. Okay? Jump, hit the car. Besides not knowing how to claim that on the insurance, that's a different thing. I'm not getting into that. But that person whose vehicle killed this person, if you will, because that's what they would say, kill the person, hitting the car. That is totally shogeg. Ones. He had no. I don't know who was
the
driving.
owner of the car.
They had no control over that. You hit my car and you killed it, and that impact killed a person. I'm sorry to hear it, but I didn't do it.
Oh.
I don't go to a city of refuge. I don't do anything. Okay. By the way, let's say somebody threw that person. Let's increase that murder. Now what happens is I have the guy. The roommate decides he's going to throw his roommate out, throws him out. And now that person falls in somebody else, killing that person, and is saved because he fell in that person. In other words, one fell out the window. He's saved, but because he fell in the other person, he killed the other person. He's not guilty for killing that person. The one who threw him out would be, if anything, the one who's guilty, but that person who threw him out didn't have in mind to kill the person he killed. So you can't count him as guilty either. He wasn't warned. You understand? So it's a chad gadya here, but it's that's what I'm saying. To get somebody on murder is very difficult. Very, very difficult. To get somebody on shogeg, not as difficult. To find an onage case, you can make them up, but they're also, I think, is far-fetched to see somebody throwing somebody off the roof. They fall on somebody else. They kill the other person. I'm not. Or they break something. That would be the other case, by the way. Let's say the guy fell out the window, fell on the car, damaged the car. Who's responsible? Who's responsible? Is the guy responsible? He would say, I didn't have a right to jump on the car. Why should I have to pay for the car? I walk away, fine. Tough luck. It's your damage. You put the car under me. I have nothing to do with this. If he saw the car there and he jumped on the car, maybe. But otherwise not. See, you see how far, like I said, you can really go crazy with this stuff. But it's that's what it is. So that is it. When they want to, so now, if or when, it's interesting, the Targum says, uses the word array, which is because. So it's interesting that he wants to say because, but it's more of an if statement. If the guy wants to come, they don't give him. They do not give him. So he says, he's chasing him. He chased him to the Ari Miklatot, to the Assyrian refuge. V'lo yizgiro, the men of the city, the Meshuz David says, helps. They help the killer, and they don't give him into the hand of the Goel Adam. Why? Because he killed without malice, without knowledge, foreknowledge, and he didn't hate him. Where is it? He didn't hate him at all. He never hated him. So therefore, they did not. They could not give him over. If they did, they would be guilty. So you can't give the guy over. Fine. Vav, vayashav be'irahi, and he will live in that city. Ad amdo lifnei ha'eda lamishpat, until he stands before the congregation for judgment. Ad mod haKohen Hagadol, until the death of the high priest Ashiyah b'yamim haim, that was in those days. Az Yeshuv HaRotzech, then the Rotzech, the murderer, the killer, will return. Uva el Iro, he will come to his city. V'el Beito, and to his house. El Ha'ir, to the city. Asher nas misham, that he fled from there. What's the questions? You have some questions here. Come on, Stan. What's your questions here?
So, that would mean that the people wanted the Kohen Gadol to die, which is not good.
Which people?
The murderers.
You mean the people in the city refuge?
Yeah.
Yes.
Or the ones who are supporting their case in the like their family maybe.
Oh, that would be interesting. With the families, I don't know. Maybe the families would want their loved ones back. It could be the families also were
So
praying.
they're all praying for the death of the Kohen Gadol.
Right.
Which isn't good. It's not a good situation.
Okay. So that's number one. Why do we care about the Kohen Gadol dying? That would be one thing. Why is that a release?
Yeah.
Okay. The other question is that he's living in the city until he stands before the court for judgment. So we're seeing that he's living rent-free. He got a rent-free room until he stands before the court. So he has to go before a tribunal to hear the case. And then what happens after that? So he heard the case. So now they find out he's shogeg. They let him go. What was going on here? It doesn't say in Hebrew. Look at the Hebrew. It's very interesting. Ad amdo lifnei edal mishpat, until he stands before the congregation, the court, for judgment. Ad mod Kohen Gadol. Is it that he has to stand before him and the Kohen Gadol has to die, or is it he has to stand before him and then he goes home, or he goes home when the Kohen Gadol dies? What happens here? What is that one statement? Two statements going together, really? It's an and or it's an or how is that? There's not a vav here. There's a comma at most. I'm sorry, what were you going to say, Stan?
Oh no, I wasn't curious as to where there were, how many cities of refuge there were.
6.
Maybe this means that he doesn't stand before the tribunal until the Kohen Gadol dies.
Why? Then it would have to be another way. Then you would say V'yashav be'ira ahi ad mola Kohen Gadol ad amdol lifnei ha'edel mishpat.
Yeah.
We'd have to reverse that. No, you have to reverse that.
You would think.
Okay, so let's see. Rashi says he's going like this. He says ad amdol mishpat im yiftar migalut yiftar. If they exempt him from galut, in other words, they heard the case, whatever, maybe they found some witnesses, maybe they didn't, whatever, they heard the case, and they said this guy is not obligated to exile. He's not obligated. So yiftar, he is let go that day. So if the court finds him innocent of shogeg, he's gone. And if the court finds him guilty of galut, they return him to the city of his refuge. V'yashav sham, now he lives there ad yom Kohen Gadol, until the death of the Kohen Gadol. So the Gemara says, what stands says, wait a second, a lot of people are going to be praying for this Kohen Gadol to die. You have a whole city of refuge. How many people are there? I don't know, but you have a lot of not only the murderers, but the families. So it says that the mother of the Kohen Gadol used to go to all of these cities and bring them gifts, so they would love and pray for the benefit of her son. There's only one Kohen Gadol, so that's what the Gemara said that she would do. Yeah, but you're right. They certainly would pray for the guy to die. But it's interesting that he had two ways out. One, he goes to, now this is interesting because he's going to the city of refuge. You're seeing something in Joshua that is not so well, I don't believe it's just spelled out in the Torah. He goes to the city of refuge. He presents his case, the initial case, that he's going to tell to the court of that city. They don't know if he's right or wrong, but it's a good case. It sounds good. Let him in, rent free. You got a place to stay. You're safe. Go al adam. We can't let you have him. Now they have to bring him to a court, a real court. The real court has to hear the case. If the court says innocent, the Goel Adam has nothing to say. and he goes back to normal life.
So, if he is guilty of negligence,
Yeah.
he would have to. I mean, there would be some kind of incarceration or restitution required if he's guilty of negligence. I mean, what's
Negligence as in
causing the murder?
what I'm saying is negligence as in being further from shogeg. You know, it's like the guy texting. You're saying
Oh, so we're saying, wait, it's
that the guy texting. You're arguing
I'm
texting.
thinking. So we're saying if it's purely accidental, where he had no control whatsoever,
Then he's gone.
Then what?
Then they send him home.
then the Goel Adam has no
Nothing to
claim
say.
on him whatsoever.
Correct.
So
And he goes home.
So the question is, what's the question then? Of what degree of negligence
Right.
is he guilty?
Right. In other words, is he really a murderer? What we want to know is he really a murderer, or is he really innocent, or is it just shogeg? I mean, it happens.
Interesting.
Happens. So if it happens that he's innocent, send him home. If he's guilty, he has to stay. But you're seeing that he has to.
So I mean, that would be his punishment of that he would have to stay there, or could be killed by the Goel Adam.
Yes.
If he decided, I don't want to stay here.
Oh, he doesn't want to stay then. The guy will kill him. Yeah, you're in jail.
So that's his punishment.
Correct. So and that would. It's not. So your other question was on restitution. You don't get two punishments. You get one. So the one thing would be that he has, as far as I remember, he only gets one punishment.
Mm-hmm.
You can't charge him money and then send him to Gullus. It wouldn't make sense. Because the guy was really a shogeg. What's he paying for?
Is there a Goel Adam who would kind of try to lure the people out of the city of refuge? Or trick them into not going?
We don't have any records of that, but it would be interesting. I'm sure maybe some have tried in the past, but it's that was not the role of the Goel Adam. The Goel Adam's role was to keep that murderer in the city refuge, to make him have enough fear that he's not going to leave. I mean, if he would even climb to get, let's say he wanted to get an apple that was just outside the door of the Goel Adam, of the city refuge, and he walks out, you're open game. It's open hunting season. But
the Goel Adam, would he be kind of like on the prowl, constantly stalking?
so that's the question. I mean, how long is the Goel Adam going to stay there? I'm not sure. It could be that the Goel Adam, we talked about this before, and I don't know the answer. Maybe you could hire somebody. Although that's really what the Kohanim, the Levim are there for, to keep you locked up. So I'm guessing they didn't just have access to walk in and out of the city. It wouldn't really make sense. It must have been, it's a jail. You're locked in. So if you're going to try to jump the fence, well, then, maybe you will have to be taken out. Maybe the Levim have the right to do that. I'm not sure. Nobody's ever I've never seen anybody talk about that. Doesn't mean it's not out there. I just never saw anybody talk about it. But all these things would be interesting questions.
Do we know the cities of refuge where they are today?
There are none.
But where the cities of refuge were?
Yeah, if you look on the maps, you'll see we know where they were. Okay. There's three. They're equidistant between the east and the west. They're right opposite each other, so that way they could run where they had to, and they could get there. They were well marked how to get there. Okay. It wasn't like it wasn't like our roads here where you go Twickenham and then stops and then picks up some other godforsaken place. It was a straight road, and it was very well marked.
But today
we don't have any today. We don't have the system today.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, by the way, why? The other thing I want to bring up is, and this is brought up in Chumash, why is the high priest connected with this at all?
Oh.
And the Rashi, he's quoting Rav Meir, so Rashi brings on Rav Meir. He says that the murderer shortens life while the high priest lengthens it through his prayers that no misfortunes occur. So and that's why he says it's improper that he who shortens man's life should be in the presence of him who lengthens it. So the murder defiles the land and dismisses the divine presence, while the high priest purifies the land and causes the divine presence to rest on the inhabitants of the land. And also, the Gemara holds that the high priest is held morally responsible for any unintentional murder taking place because of his failure to pray that such misfortunes be averted. So the high priest, if he was apparently didn't pray hard enough, as it were, to have God intervene that no unintentional murder takes place. Because, and let's understand what that means. I have a house with a flat roof. Actually, I do. So, but nobody gets up there. Let's say people were walking around on that flat roof. Then I am obligated to put up a fence on that so that nobody should fall over accidentally. Okay. So if I don't, then I'm guilty of that mistake, and I would have to. It's my problem. Okay, so what happens is we put it is if people are really using the roof. Mm-hmm. And these are days that people used to use roofs for this. In New York, you still have it, in these apartment buildings where they
houses around here occasionally where they have a roof. Their garage has a flat roof, and you see the fence around it, where they could use it for a deck.
Oh, fine. If they use it for if people are walking onto it, they have to put up a fence. The reason being, the Torah. The reason is the Torah says to do it. But why does the Torah tell us to do it? Because it says to put the merpeset up. There's fence. There's whatever you want to call it. There's railing. It says because this person was supposed to die. The person who dies is supposed to die. God wants this guy dead. He's going to die. But it doesn't have to be through you. If you follow the Torah will protect you so it doesn't fall through you. Okay, so he'll die. God has a lot of ways to kill a person. You have to fall off my roof. If I did not follow the law and you fell off my roof, so then I didn't kill you, but I facilitated the event. So God's saying, don't do me any favors, follow my rules. Fine. The high priest is supposed to pray that these unintentional murders don't take place on his watch. No. And if he didn't do that and something happened, that's why he's held responsible too, according to that Gemara. So there's two ways to look at that, but it's a strange concept, but nonetheless, everybody's ultimately guarantors for the other, and the leader is really the biggest guarantor, because if the leader doesn't do what the leader's supposed to do, he is collectively responsible for a lot of problems that we have. So it's that's why they picked on the Kohen. That's why Hashem picked on the Kohen Gadol here. Okay. But the other thing about this verse is, once the Kohen Gadol dies, or he's sitting in court, and the Vertzeach is now free to go home, he goes home to the very city he was running from. In other words, you can't hold anything against him anymore. He's done his time. That's it. Hashem said enough is enough.
What if the Kohen Gadol dies within months? Doesn't
matter. Could die a day later. Game over. You go home. And the Goel Adam has nothing to say. If he would kill the guy, he's a murderer. So that's the point. What the whole city of refuge is for kapara. It's for atonement. Once I achieve my atonement I need, that's the end of it. And then he goes home. And you can't hold, like I said, he goes to his house. Imagine the guy who's gone for 25 years. Yeah. He has to go to his house. That means you have to keep the house. The family can't sell it on him. Or his house, maybe his wife. I know it seems that he has to go to his house. But it's because that's to his house. To the city that he ran from. So it's not, he doesn't have to even move to another city. He's going home. It's very interesting.
If
Okay.
they do sell the house, then he would go to a different house.
Say it again.
If they do move houses, then
I guess he would go to. But the point is that he's going home. He doesn't have to. He doesn't have to relocate. That's the biggest thing. Obviously, I think the family would sell a house, or they lost the house because they have money, whatever. So, he has to. He has to do what he has to do. But in general, the point is that he gets to go home. So now Zion, Vayakdishu at Kadesh, and they sanctified, or they set apart Kadesh. Here's your city of refuge, by the way. Kadesh, Begalil, Bahar, Naphtali. So they set aside this place called Kadesh, which is in the Galil, in the Mount Ephraim. Fiat Shechem, Bahar Ephraim, also Shechem, which is Nahar Ephraim. I'm sorry. Kadesh is in the Galil in Har Naphtali. Shechem is in the Mount of Ephraim. Kiryat Arba, Vihi Chevron, Bahar Yehuda, and Kiryat Arba, which is Chevron, which is in Mount Yehuda. So, by the way, Kiryat Arba, two places we know. Geographically, we know today. Shechem is what we call Nablus. If you look on the map, Nablus is Shechem. And Kiryat Arba, Chevron is Chevron. I don't think they changed Chevron's name yet. Hebron. Yeah, so Hebron is Hebron. Maybe so that's on Israel's side. So you have Kadesh, Shechem, and Hebron. Then that's from north to south, I'm guessing, right? North to south. If it makes sense. North to south? That's north to south, right? Okay, good. So then on the Aver the Yarden, Yericho, Mizracha. So now from the other side of the Jordan, on the east side. So Natsnu at Betzer b'Midbar b'Mishom Mate Reuven. They gave Betzer, which is in the wilderness, upon the plain, from the tribe of Reuven. Viet Ramot b'Gilad b'Mate Gad, and they gave Ramot and Gilad from the tribe of Gad. Viet Golan b'Bashan b'Mate Menashe, and they also gave the Golan and Bashan out of the tribe of Menashe. So again, we know one more Golan. We know where the Golan Heights are. Yeah. That is where it was. Okay. That's your cities. U'ele hayu arei hamu'ada l'kol b'nei Israel. So these were the cities that were set apart from all of Bnei Israel, of Lagir Agav B'tocham, and for the stranger that dwelled in their midst, Lanus Shama, to run there, to flee there. Kol Makei Nefesh Bishkaga, anybody who killed by accident, V'lo Yamut Biyad Goel Adam, and he will not die by the hand of the Goel Adam, Ad Amdu Lifnei Ha'eda, until he stands in front of the courts. So what does that mean? Listen to that. I'm going to say that verse again. I want you to listen to the verse. Exactly how I'm translating literally. These are the cities that were set aside for all Bnei Israel, and for the stranger that dwelled in their midst, to run there. All the people who killed by accident, and said he would not die by the hand of the Goel Adam and by the Redeemer of blood, until he stood before the congregation. What's your question?
That's kind of repeating from before.
Yeah, well, summing it up. But there's another question there. He will not be killed by the Goel Adam until he stands before the court.
Leaves out the Kohen Gadol.
Besides that, what do you mean? It should say...
Oh, it's saying he will not die by he's not eligible to die until then.
Until he stands before the tribunal. So after he stands before the tribunal, that's when they kill him?
If he's not in the city.
No. No. So again, Meshuvah David says, Ad Yamod L'Mishpat L'Dono, until he stands for judgment. Imhu Chayev Mita. So if he's obligated to die, Kasha Yatsa, when he goes out Chayev, he'll be Chayev Az B'dei Goel Adam Lamito. So if he's found guilty and he wants to go outside, then the Goel Adam, Meshuvah David said, he's Chayev. He's obligated to kill him.
Yeah.
obligated. So apparently he must have to hang around. I don't know. Maybe he has to hang around all this time.
Oh, it never said before that the Goel Adam was
He can't hire anybody.
was obligated to kill him.
Right.
Huh.
He says, the digest says like this: only upon the verdict of guilty, delivered by the tribunal of 23 judges, would the murderer be exposed to the wrath of the avenger of blood. This verdict is delivered when the murder was committed because of a failure to take the proper precautions to avert it. Also, if the murderer was not warned, or if the witnesses do not possess all the qualifications for acceptance. When the murderer was warned and the witnesses do possess all the proper qualifications, the court performs the execution. Okay, so in other words, if I have witnesses and so on and so forth, and everything was done properly, then the Goel Adam also doesn't kill him. The court kills him. You put to death, the death penalty. But if the other case, he was guilty, and then he leaves, so then the Goel Adam is chayav to do what he has to do. Okay. And we will stop here. Very good. We're at chapter 21.